What's good, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back to another soccer video for today. Obviously, we are in the heart preseason right now. Manchester United, my boys played last night. I've been watching preseason games. Hey, I have been watching preseason games. I haven't had like a post-match review, but that's gonna be coming when the season officially starts. But I've been watching games. I watched them last night versus Real Madrid. Obviously, they lost 2-0, but it's good to see Nana. It's a change compared to what they had, but that's been really cool to see. Good to see the guys playing, getting some more minutes, and yeah, that's all I can take from the game because we lost, we didn't score. But anyway, we do need a striker though. We do need a striker. That's very needed. But today, shout out to Daily Dose of Football. We are going to be checking out how good was Eric Cantona. Actually, former Manchester United, man. I think he played for Leeds as well. So, great. The King Cantona. We are going to check him out. As always, hope you guys do enjoy the content on this channel. Don't forget to like and sub if you do enjoy it. Let's start. That's it. Yeah, let's get it, man.
After the Second World War, a man who fled from Spain after suffering liver damage in his fight against dictator General Franco would leave to France and eventually have a daughter who would meet the son of an Italian immigrant who lived in a cave that had been used as a Nazi outlook post near Marseille. These two would come together in the unlikeliest and most interesting way, which was truly fitting to the life their second son would live, and that little boy would be named Eric Cantona. Despite living in a countryside cave house, he would have a passion for football and would soon begin playing for a local club, S.O. Kelole. Encouraged to play as a goalkeeper by his father, he would eventually move forward as his talent could not be overlooked, so much so that he would eventually get scouted by Auxerre and start playing for the youth team, something that wouldn't last long as he would be moved up to the first team. After playing 7 matches in his first 2 seasons for Auxerre, his career would be put on hold so that he could take part in his mandatory military service. As he came back, he would be loaned out to the second division team, FC Martigues, finally taking a major role for Auxerre. In 1986, he would get his first opportunity to play for the French national team despite being only 20 years old at the time. That would not last long either, as he would enter an altercation with his teammate Bruno Martini and punch him, leaving Bruno with a black eye and getting himself banned from the national team.
Hold on, my boy Cantona's a freaking... I can't say he a dog because, violence isn't really always the answer. But he was in the French team for that short time, and he punched a goalkeeper in the face, which led to his suspension. It's crazy. That's why I don't think you really ever hear people talk about his international dudes with France because he didn't play because he couldn't.
The next year, he would get into trouble again, being suspended for 2 months after a dangerous tackle on Michel Der-Zakarian. In the summer, he would take part in the Under-23 Euros, scoring 3 goals, all of them coming against England in the semi-finals, a performance that would make him enjoy a bit of notoriety for a while, that would grant him a place in Marseille for 3.3 million euros, a national record at the time. He would keep making himself look like a loose cannon, kicking a ball into the crowd and ripping off his shirt after being substituted in his first season at Marseille. These problems would lead them to loan him to Bordeaux and then Montpellier, where he would famously throw his boots at a teammate's face. Regardless, teammates Valderrama and Laurent Blanc would convince the team not to suspend him, and his incredible form would lead Montpellier to win the French Cup and convince Marseille to take him back. His final season at Marseille would see the club change coaches a couple of times, even being coached by Beckenbauer for a while. Eventually, the final coach would have severe issues with Cantona's personality and would sell him to Nîmes, despite his contribution to their league title. At Nîmes, his anger issues would hit all-time highs, with the player throwing the ball at a referee, getting a disciplinary hearing and getting suspended for 1 month, to which he would take the opportunity to call each of the members of the committee idiots to their faces, as they would go on to extend his suspension for an extra month. Cantona would be left even angrier and would announce that he was retiring from football at the age of 25. Witnessing his career go to waste, many would try to get him to come back. First, Platini would attempt to get Sheffield Wednesday and Liverpool to give him a trial, and eventually Gerard Houllier and his shrink would convince him to move to England and start over, which would prompt his move to Leeds United in the winter transfer market of 1992. As he arrived in Leeds, he found a team that, despite having no big names, was somehow fighting for the title. Cantona must have empathized with the cause, as he would not only go the rest of the season without causing much trouble, but he would also be amazing on the pitch, being the last piece in the puzzle that would see the recently promoted side of Leeds United clinch the last English Football League title in the penultimate match of the season. The next season would start amazingly, as Leeds went on to play the Charity Shield with Liverpool despite missing several of their regular starters, and still win, as Cantona would become the first player since 1957 to score a hat-trick in the competition, and one of the few to score one at Wembley Stadium. Then, as the first season of the new Premier League started, Leeds would seem very solid still, beating Tottenham 5-0 as Cantona scored the newly created competition's first hat-trick in the Champions.
Alright, so Cantona was going crazy. Now listen, I really don't like giving credit to Leeds, stuff like that, but I think during this time they were really, really good at stuff like that, winning the I guess the title or whatever. I know Cantona was that crazy though with Leeds. I mean, his French days when he was in French league, my man he give a crap. I mean he fighting.
Champions League, they wouldn't last very long,
My boy
going up
didn't
to the
care.
second round
Listen,
of
that
playoffs.
change of scenery is
After
needed,
defeating
man,
Stuttgart
sometimes.
in a very tough match
That's all you
where they
need.
would lose the first leg 3-0 and then go on to win the second leg 4-1, leading Stuttgart to go through on away goals. But this would not be the case in actuality, as UEFA would soon realize that Stuttgart had fielded 4 foreign players, which didn't fit the tournament's rules. Therefore, a 3-0 win would be given to Leeds. The problem was that this meant the match ended on a tie, so they would have a specially set up neutral match at the Camp Nou to decide who would go through, which Leeds United would win 2-1. Through all of this, Cantona suffered through his injury recovery and was unable to help Leeds as they slowly went down in the league table. Cantona was never one to deal well with tough times, and soon as a rift would be formed between him and the rest of the team, with him eventually being dropped and requesting a transfer during the winter market. With Sir Alex Ferguson in desperate need of a striker, trailing behind at only 8th place in the league, mainly to the lack of creativity in the attack, the player would move to Manchester United for just £1.2 million.
Dang!
It would debut for the club in a friendly match in Lisbon.
But that's gonna be like
a
lot of like money back then, though.
And then he would breeze into the starting 11, completely turning the team's form around.
I would say 1.2 because I was thinking about it now, but like back then I think that was like a lot of money.
And creating chances left and right, with his only odd moment coming in his match against former team Leeds, where he would spit in a fan's face. Regardless, by the end of the season, Manchester United were top of the table for the first time in 26 years, with Cantona being the first foreign player to win consecutive Premier League titles with 2 different teams. The next season, it would completely settle down, winning PFA Player of the Year, finishing in 3rd place in the Ballon d'Or, only behind Roberto Baggio and Dennis Bergkamp, revalidating the Premier League title and finishing as the team's top scorer in all competitions with 26 goals. The next season should be remembered for Man United's close title race with overachievers Blackburn Rovers, but instead Cantona would once again lose his mind and completely overshadow his performances on the pitch, as in a match against Crystal Palace he would kick a player out of frustration and be sent off. As he walked towards the tunnel, a fan came down 11 rows of seats to yell at him, "Go back to France, you French bastard." Cantona lunged at him, kicking him in the chest like a kung fu fighter and then punching him several times. That moment would be front page of every newspaper, with people calling for him to be banned from football for life and even deported. Eventually, he would be sentenced to 120 hours of community service, banned by the FA for 8 months, and stripped of the captain armband by the French national team, after which he would never play for them again. In his first press conference,
so he was
after
banned.
this, he was
so early on he was like, so I'm guessing when I went off early on he was suspended. He wasn't like banned, but I thought you said he was banned, so that's why I got it from. So I'm assuming this time he really got like, after this time his suspension, he really got
sit and say, "When the seagulls follow the trawler, it's because they think fish will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much." And then leave the room, leaving everyone oblivious to what had just happened. Words that will never be forgotten. Amongst all of this, of course, Cantona threatened to leave England, but Sir Alex would meet with him and convince him to stay. As he came back, he struggled to keep up with the pace after so many months not being able to play, and by the winter market, Manchester United were 10 points behind Newcastle.
Jeez.
But then, Cantona and the whole team stepped up, going 10 matches unbeaten, with Cantona scoring in 6 consecutive matches. Manchester United would finally manage to secure the title in the last day of the season, as Cantona once again managed to be the top scorer despite his ban. The next season, he would be named captain of Manchester United, performing one of his most famous celebrations against Sunderland. By the end of the season, they had won the league once again, and shockingly, Cantona would announce his retirement at the young age of 30. As he would explain himself by saying, "I want to retire while I'm at the top." Cantona is one of the most enigmatic figures the sport has seen.
Only 30 years old.
Seem to have a love-hate relationship with him, because as entertaining as his antics might have been, it clearly cost him the opportunity to solidify his place amongst the greats. I even questioned myself whether or not he deserved a place in this series, to be honest. At first sight, a striker that only managed 187 career goals, around the same as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and never won any major international trophies, cannot be deserving of a place like this. But not only do we get the sense that he never was at the peak of his ability, but also that he did contribute far more to the team than just goals. And that was my reasoning for putting l'enfant terrible in this list. Getting into our ranking system, when it comes to his finishing, it's very hard to rate. He was very elegant, but not the most prolific at all. And although I do believe we should give star points, they shouldn't be the focus. Regardless, he was great at set pieces, and his physical presence made him a threat in the air, so he'll get a 9 out of 10. Then his positioning. Perhaps what stopped him from being a prolific goal scorer was that he wasn't much of a target man. I've always wondered if he would have been better playing further back, but regardless, this is a 7 out of 10. For speed and physicality, he was really imposing physically while maintaining a graceful stance, which has to warrant him a good score despite not being the fastest, an 8 out of 10. Also, his first touch and ball control, they were the best part of his game, a true joy to watch, and he could not get any less than a 10 out of 10. Then, his mentality. I think this is the toughest thing I've had to judge so far on this series. He was a complete loose cannon and seemed to always make the worst decisions, but he was also an imposing figure which seemed to push teams onto success. Regardless, I think his career was more negatively impacted by this than positively, so he can only get a 4 out of 10. Now his legacy. First, consistency. He always performed both in France and England, but he lacked internationally, so he can only get a 7 out of 10. Secondly, flair. At the time, he was one of the most satisfying to watch, so subtle and graceful with volleys and all sorts of spectacular strikes. He gets a 10 out of 10. Then his trophy cabinet. Not a single international trophy, not even a UEFA Cup, no Ballon d'Or, but winning 7 titles in 9 years is something incredible, and it warrants him a 3 out of 10. In terms of longevity, only 14 seasons, only 5 at a top team, having retired at 30 years of age, he can only get a 3 out of 10. Finally, the icon factor. This is by far one of the most iconic players we have till this day. Kids still put up their collars and say, "Look at me, I'm Cantona." And I doubt that will change anytime soon, so he has to get a 9 out of 10. This totals out to 70 out of 100, which makes him the second lowest rating ever on this series, and I know that many of you are already about to hit the dislike button, but realize that this doesn't mean any disrespect towards him. He was a great figure of the sport, but his personality stopped him from truly taking the step up, and it reflected across his career. And as much as I admire him as a player, it would be unfair to overlook all of his flaws. And also keep in mind that if a player even makes it to this series, it means that he is one of the greatest of all time. So the rankings do have to be tough.
Facts. Hey. Outstanding video, very good video. I didn't know he was like that crazy. I had no idea he was like a loose cannon type of thing. Great video, daily dose. As always, if you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to like and sub as well. Take care, stay amazing as always. Peace.